This is the Xilence Xilent Gleam. I'm so proud I just pronounced that without stuttering. Even if the model line and production company is kinda hard to keep apart, this is something different. This is an aquarium-style mid-tower case featuring a ton of out-of-the-box ARGB, some other fancy extra stuff and a bunch of mesh. But the actual reason why I'm so excited about this one is that for the very first time, Xilence isn't pushing out a, let's say, standard case in a affordable price range. No, this is supposed to be good, like just good, period. And yes, on one hand, I do believe that this is good, but now that Xilence is starting to play with, let's call them bigger players, they also need to learn a lot of stuff in a very short time. And the product will be evaluated a lot more like other high-end products rather than a budget beginner thing. But before we begin with my nagging marathon, let's take a closer look at the Gleam. This puppy comes in a pretty much standard brown cotton box, but inside we'll get the first glance of higher class feeling. Some high quality styrofoam, and the additional box of goodies is nicely organized into an actual box this time. Standing on the table, the case measures 246mm wide, 522mm high and 485mm deep, which for once is very close to what Xilence said it would be. Seems like somebody learned how to measure their own stuff. Great. The Gleam is available in both white and black, which are, well, black and white. What a surprise. Both the front and right side panel feature a 4mm thick tempered glass panel, which is pretty thick considering the price point of this thing, and all of the panels are attached using a simple pop mechanic. And as a little bonus, you can pop off pretty much everything, giving you full access to all the sides of the case. And in case you don't feel too comfortable, the two side panels do feature an additional catching thumb screw. On the inside, we can already see where this is going. Motherboard-wise, this is still a mid-tower, so everything from mini ITX up to regular ATX. CPU cooler-wise, this thing is pretty solid. With up to 185mm high towers, you can basically do whatever you want. And the same thing applies to GPUs. With up to 455mm long cards, you can install the biggest cards that exist right now. And even the new NVIDIA connector isn't a problem, as there is more than enough space to add the community-loved NVIDIA Octopus adapter. The power supply goes into its own separate compartment in the bottom, and for this one you got about 270mm worth of space, including cables. And that's really important because the shroud is closed off towards the end, so you are free to use whatever you want, but just don't go too overboard here. 200mm long PSUs should be max if you want to feel comfortable. For drives, they are kinda everywhere. In total, we got 7 2.5-inch spots, either on brackets or using these rubber mountings from the box of goodies. And in case you want to go with fidget spinners, you can also install 2 of those. But do keep in mind that this will come at the cost of SSDs. And as a last general info, I/O. This one is located at the top of the case, and the mesh filter, which is easily removable, doesn't actually contain it. It just got a hole for it. On here we got 2 USB 3.0 Type A's, one 3.2 Gen 2 Type C, a combined audio in and out, and relatively clicky buttons, which are connected using a single big ass plug, which is great job here. And now with the base features done, let's talk about the case's cooling. The case comes with 4 140mm fans pre-installed, one in the back as exhaust and 3 on the side as intake, featuring a reverse spinning fan blade design. So as a package, the case comes pretty much loaded up. Sure, you can exchange the fans, and me personally, I would definitely do so, but if you're looking for an all-in-one box and an affordable thing, the default setup will definitely get you going. But you can add more. In the top we got another 3 140 or 120mm fan spots. The 140s are not necessarily as useful, as a lot of the potential space is just blocked off by unnecessary metal, but at least we got easy access cause that complete bracket is removable using only 4 screws. Then we got another 2 potential spots, which may or may not be useful to some degree. On top of the separate power supply shroud, we got another 2 120mm fan spots, and if you want to use those, you can use the included screws in the box of goodies. However, do keep in mind that these are only useful to a certain degree. The first fan, yeah, can you maybe not? Thank you. The first fan will always be completely blocked off by the PSU anyway, so that one is just useless. And the second one will be useful if you don't come with a meter-long power supply. So the second one can do something to a certain degree, so don't expect it to perform miraculously. But hey, if you come with a very short power supply, at least it can breathe freely. The bottom of the case consists entirely of a hexagon structure, and underneath that we got a case-long removable dust filter, which does feel kinda great. The one thing that does bother me, the right side panel doesn't have any dust filter. Sure, it's like a very tiny mesh hole structure, but other than that, the dust would just come right into the case. And now coming to radiators, because we got 420mm support. Both the top and side fan spots can house everything from a mini 120 all the way up to a 420mm radiator. Of course, not simultaneously. If your radiators are thin, like 25, 27, 30mm, you could maybe get away with a 420 and a 360. A 420 on the side, a 360 on the top. And if your edges are like as thin as humanly possible. But don't believe you can come with the thick boys here. At least not simultaneously. And don't forget that your GPU will at some point be in the way. If you install it regularly, you will have enough space for, let's say, a 27, maybe 30mm thick radiator, but that's really it. That's max. At least for the side. For the top, I mean, you can do whatever you want, but you will also get into trouble at some point, considering your motherboard will be in the way. But let's now talk about the things that Xilent did particularly well in here, which would be cable management. You got all of those holes allowing you to route the cables through, which is great, sure. And they are all covered using protective rubber, which is even better. Especially because they also included the GPU one, which also got a rubber, which isn't always the case. But the main point is in the back. There is just so much space to work with. I found it surprisingly easy to cable manage all of the builds we did in here, and even using the cable extensions. We used not this exact model, but we used cable extensions in each build. And it was so easy. There is a gap of about 35mm right behind the motherboard, and if you combine that with those Velcro strips, it's just easy. And there are only two things that I do not like regarding the cables. On one hand, I'm not the biggest fan of how much the hole goes below the standard ATX motherboard. I get that they try to achieve that half-hidden look, but I feel like it's just a bit too much. A centimeter less would have achieved the same like optical effect, but it would have given us more space. And the other point is the end piece of the PSU shroud. Why the hell is that thing mesh? I get that you need the holes for SSDs because it's also an SSD spot, but because it's fully mesh, you will always see right through it. And now just imagine somebody doesn't have black cables as I have here, and yes, like, I don't know, white braided cables. You will always see that stuff. And it's going to look hideous. So cable management in general, it's great, with a few minor things I do not particularly like, but as a whole, good job. But the Gleam is not done because we got some extra stuff, like the optional vertical GPU option. You can remove the 4 screws, keeping the whole PCIe compartment in place, and just rotate it by 90 degrees and voila, vertical GPU. Of course, you will need to bring your own PCIe riser. There is nothing included in the box, but it's an option. Then there's also the pre-installed GPU anti-sag bracket. As a concept, I like the fact that it's there, but it can be a bit of a hassle. Out of the box, you got 2 holders on there, which have different lengths. You are free to remove one of them, or turn one around and use it like a sandwich, which I also did in one of the builds, which is quite fun, but you can do whatever you want, and if you want an even shorter one, there is another one in the box of goodies. But my issue is that you can only move these levers up and down, and even if this might work for a huge group of GPUs, somebody will come with that one card where the fan will be exactly over that bracket and the fan will be protruding to like the very edge of the card, like my 4090 from Zodiac. On that card, no matter which lever I try to use, it will block one of the fans. So it is cool to have, but it's not a one-shoe-fits-all solution. It's just not. There will be the one card that doesn't do it. And it could have been perfect if that lever or if the whole bracket could be like swivelable to the left and right. That would have solved everything. And by the way, if you install your GPU vertically, you can take the anti-sag bracket all along and transform it into a sandwich holder, which is kind of cool. Another extra that I kept until here is something that for some reason isn't mentioned even once in all of Xilence's documentation about this case. This seemingly random empty space in the bottom of the case. When I first got the case, I was like, why the hell is there a hole and why are they artificially and heavily limiting the potential PSU length for seemingly nothing? But it's not nothing. Sure, you can mount SSDs there, that's okay, but actually those are 120 and 140mm holes. And the case is standing on relatively high 2.3mm high feet, so you can get some amazing bottom intake right there. And it's not only that, because the side fans are reverse spinning intakes. This means that the bottom one can help to redirect the air from the most bottom side fan to create a pretty good airflow path. Or if you got a ridiculously long GPU, this will also be partially blowing air into your card, giving it more cooling. So no, this seemingly random empty spot is not a waste of space. It's actually relatively interesting and potentially performance enhancing, of course depending on the exact setup that you have, but you can work with that. Whew. And that should conclude, I believe, all of the positive stuff about the case. And overall, I do think it's cool, or at least it looks cool. The black one has a bit of a shadowy effect on the glass, but overall you got a big aquarium which allows you to see all of your fancy gear whilst hiding all of the stuff you don't want to show. And now let's get to the stuff that is not so good. In the back of the case we got this ARGB fan controller. You can use it by connecting the SATA power connection and then press the ARGB button on the I/O panel. Okay, but you can also connect it to your motherboard using 3-pin ARGB and PWM. And by default, all of the 4 fans are pre-connected to it, both ARGB and their 3-pin connection. The problem is, half of that stuff is just useless. The 3 fans are 3-pin voltage controlled, and even if that usually doesn't mean a lot, in this particular case, it means everything. For some very annoying reason, the fan controller on here is not capable of controlling these fans, no matter what I tried. 3 different motherboards, I had the external Nokia controller going. As long as the 4 original fans are connected, they will always spin at 800 RPM fixed. I tried everything I could. 800 RPM, nothing changes. But the controller isn't broken like as a whole. If you connect an additional like real 4-pin PWM fan, it works just fine. And so do the original fans. If I connect them elsewhere, like straight to the motherboard, they are working exactly as they should. I can make them spin faster and slower. So inherently, nothing is broken. The fact is just the controller can't do voltage control, which is like really fucking stupid if you include only voltage controlled fans in the case. Now, if that would be the only issue, okay, skip the fan controller. Use it maybe as an ARGB splitter or ARGB controller, and you can always reconnect all of the fans straight to the motherboard, or maybe like a splitter and then run all of them off the same header. That works fine, or at least I would definitely do so, because at 800 RPM the reverse spinning fans are quite loud and the back one has like a grinding noise to it, which is also the reason why I ripped them all out before starting to shoot this now, because you would hear it in the mic all the time. No, the thing is, this kinda opens the door to bigger issues regarding the case. The details are just not quite there. And I really mean that. There's a larger gap on the left side of the front glass compared to the right, which may or may not be caused by the left side panel being a bit too long and overhanging. The motherboard spacers aren't precise. Sure, you can get 1 screw in, but after like the 3rd one, you will start to notice that things don't really align as they should. And if you force your way through, which I did on multiple occasions, you are applying pressure on the back I/O in a, let's say, weird angle, and in the back stuff will get squeezed in a way which just results in all kinds of crap. Either one of the feet is a little bit smaller, or the rubber underneath it is, or both, but let's be honest, who cares, because in the end, the whole thing just pivots. Yeah, this is a feature. The black paint on the front glass isn't straight. It's hard to notice from the outside, but if you look from the inside where we got, let's say, orientation points, it's clearly higher on one side compared to the other. If you rotate the GPU and take the anti-sag bracket along the right, it will slightly overhang, which isn't necessarily an issue, it just sucks. And all of these small little details continue all throughout the case. It's in general, I do like the case. I think it looks good. The glass and the material thickness is a good choice. Everything feels nice. The pop mechanic is great. And the fact that I can remove every side is awesome. And I'm a big fan of the airflow concept, of course, especially with that bottom intake there in the front. But on one side, I believe Xilence has to improve on the tolerances and overall, like say, quality control. And on the other side, the ARGB fan controller has to be updated. Can you please stop doing that? Yeah, the ARGB fan controller just has to be updated to some degree support voltage control. This is just ridiculous. It should do so out of the box. Like 99% of controllers will do that, but not this one. And I don't get why. And all of this isn't even unit specific. I got both the white and black one. Both have the exact same issues, but funnily enough, the white one is slightly better. Like all of the tolerance issues are still there, but they are smaller. So this kinda leaves me in a weird spot. On one side, I like the case, but the small things just have to improve to make it worth, let's say, the class of case that it tries to be. And to be honest, if all the things would be fixed, I would be perfectly happy to recommend it, especially for the price. I was told this should retail for about 99 to 110 euros, depending on the color. The black one should be 99 and the white one should be like 10 to 15 euros more expensive. And considering the amount of glass and style and all the features, it's really great. You get a ready-to-use case, perfectly capable of running the biggest, sickest hardware that you want, but first they need to improve on stuff. Just imagine somebody buys this, he does everything the right way, and then he will forever wonder why his fans are spinning so goddamn loud 24/7. And in the end, he didn't do anything wrong. Xilence just bought a crappy controller. Whew. But on a more positive side, the building experience in this was quite positive. The last build we did, which is exactly this one here, this is a 7950X3D with a vertical 4080 and a Xilence Pro 240mm AIO. And it was as easy as it gets to build this. And cooling wise, it is great. The CPU stays 5 degrees C below thermal throttle when I hit it with CPU burner, and the GPU stays in the low 70s at 340 watts when I run Firmark, the new version of Firmark. So cooling wise, even whilst using the original fans, even if they are spinning at like a fixed 800 RPM, it is actually great. I just hope that they do improve on the little things for the next batch. But okay, this should be all for Xilence and their Xilent Gleam, and at this point a huge thank you to them for sending it over. Oh, on a side note, we have a Discord server, so if you wanna join, the link is down below. And we got channel membership, so if you are planning to sell your soul for an OG poop emoji, that's one way to go. But if not, I'm also releasing the content to all members 2 or 3 weeks in advance. Except for the NDA stuff, because, you know, I don't want to get sued. Additionally, you can rest assured that the income will not only keep the channel afloat, but it will also serve to... Anyway, thank you for watching, and if you want to continue, have a look at our recent take on the IM2 expander. That one was also pretty cool. Hope to see you on the next one. Bye bye.